Hold on. Wait, I started recording. I'll delete this. Really, I don't know what his deal is. I don't know if he just wants people to feel sorry for him, or wants to pretend he's intelligent, or he's got to have a lawsuit. That must be the angle. Maybe he wants to be an influencer. And with that Heyoka, that sushi, come on. That's racist-ish. Is he kidding me? Pathetic. That is a conversation I have inside my head all the time. So I need to clarify why I am here recording this or any other video I have recorded and posted. There are 50 or 60 videos that I recorded and deleted during the first year after suffering a traumatic brain injury and being on a ventilator in the SICU, where they did save my life. I keep videos on my YouTube channel from the beginning of this round of recording, and I am aware they sound very crazy. I keep all of that to document my journey. Having suffered a traumatic brain injury, having pre-existing mental illness that has gone nuclear in the past year and a half. I have benefited from having excellent therapists. I had one before who moved out of state. She was wonderful, with a wonderful heart. And I have a therapist now who is a wonderful clinician and a great guy. My therapist from before was operating with some misinformation from the places I had been that I view as the place where my PTSD began. I have been on the most strenuous and difficult root cause analysis and special investigation imaginable. I had to know why. I've always asked about the how and why of everything in my life as a neurodivergent psychiatric nurse clinician for close to 40 years. So I have been stuck on the last 5 or so years. What happened to me is the question. In my 50s, in the last 5 years, I'm 59 now. What has changed in my life? Everything. A lot changed because I changed it. And then a former patient at South Beach Psychiatric Center on a unit I supervised, I suppose decided he didn't like being in the hospital because he was sent there inappropriately by bypassing DOC and forensics and OMH guidelines. But regardless, he didn't like being there, so he decided he'll just go back to jail. And he gave up his court fight against a 5-year felony assault charge levied against him because I am an RN. But he punched me because I was a boss or a supervisor to make a statement that he wanted to be locked up. He didn't like it there. I had seen that play out when I worked in the forensic unit at Bellevue in the 1980s, in the early days of my nursing career. This man didn't go that route. He went right to South Beach, sucker punched me, Without warning, I fell, shattered my head, wound up in an ICU, and now he is in prison because they never cleared his other warrants. I have seen the correctional system work for some people who have committed crimes while not guilty by reasons of insanity, mental illness. I have seen the system work for some, and I have advocated for it through my involvement as a volunteer with NAMI New York City, Staten Island, through the podcast, which was an extension of my volunteer work with NAMI, which I ran for almost 10 years. It was very expensive and difficult, but it was my donation to the cause to help people find their voices and express themselves. What I have been through in the past year and a half, not including the surgery I had just over a month ago, the ACDF double discectomy infusion that I wanted from the beginning. I have experienced extremes of loss, pain, and trauma no human being should ever. And because I have no memory, my identity is trashed, the thing that I use as fuel as an alchemist to convert it is pain. Learning to convert pain into an energy as an alchemist that I can do something with has been life-saving. Let me be clear. I am referring to suicidality. And I am now referring to the things that are important to me that I have done to prevent dying, or going impulsive or extreme and killing myself, and here's the or. My pain was so extreme that I was prepared to do surgery on myself. I am aware I would not survive that surgery, but it was planned out, and I was ultra stoically silent, all alone. That was a muscle memory of a skill I used my whole life, living with ADHD, inattentive type, and major depression my entire life. It's why I became a peer facilitator around COVID for NAMI Staten Island. There is no shame in having a mental illness. Oh, excuse me, I forgot. Mental health concerns. The war on stigma. So I put it this way. Anyone who has a cellular metabolism concern, it's not a disease, it's an issue, a concern. Cellular metabolism needs to just fight on and think positive. By cellular metabolism, I'm referring to cancer. Just think it away. It's not a real disease. It's a concern, it's an issue. Mental illness is a disease, as is diabetes or cancer, or the neurodegenerative processes I feared and was terrified about over the last 4 years, since 2021. First testing COVID positive on April 7th, 2020. Less than 1 year later, I developed treatment refractory depression. That was the official label. And I went for over a year of neurology workups in 22 to great expense, and it was difficult because I was certain I had some type of vascular dementia, because my executive functioning was trashed, my depression. I was an absolute red flag for anyone who is trained and skilled at suicide prevention, as I was. But no one ever knew that about me, because I chose to never let anyone know. I kept that mask on tight. No one ever saw behind it. My behavioral assessment skills, I used them throughout my career to make sure no one ever got a read on my behavior or my affect or anything I said other than what I intended my message to be. Sadly, the effect after a traumatic brain injury that I did miraculously wake up after being extubated. Medicine and science has knowledge, and they have statistics. I think that's why I was approved for SSD the first time around, because according to medical statistics, well, according to what medicine knows, I'm not here right now talking to my phone in Clove Lakes Park, short of breath, sick as a dog. But statistics have me either dying there from a stroke or an MI, or going to an assisted facility and stroking out or dying there. For anyone who thinks I'm being doom and gloom, I would ask, take a look at all my records, including the echocardiogram I had a month ago. And tell me if you don't think clinically it is some type of miracle I am here right now. Now, the things I have recorded, I know they sound crazy as can be. I keep it all because it is a documentation of my journey since suffering a traumatic brain injury and the extremes of the things I have been through, and especially what I have done to survive. Because I have done a few things that are keeping me alive now. I know from my 16 plus years with NAMI New York City, Staten Island as a volunteer in every role and capacity, I know I am not alone. I know from being now a volunteer ambassador for Hope Survives in Pennsylvania, I am reminded again, I am not alone. Now, it's time I completely unmask, unrehearsed. What I mean is, there's nothing I could possibly say I have not said before 1,000,000 times to myself. That, I know, is the absence of confidence and self-esteem. I have awareness on levels I never had before, which, looking at it in a psychiatric lens as a clinician, you might say, oh, shit, he's delusional, that's it, he's grandiose, I hope he doesn't do something impulsive, he might be saying goodbye, we better go get help. Yeah. I'm smiling and chuckling because humor is both therapeutic and essential. It has a factor in me surviving. So what can I do now for myself? This. I talk, I share. I know the cardiac damage I have taken, and again I read my records. I know how I feel. I am shocked every day because there's no memories. I have antecedent amnesia, everything. I have never been diagnosed or checked to find out what part of my brain got damaged from 3 hemorrhagic strokes, that I have no memory, or I don't project things in my mind or fears. But on a positive aspect, in my neurodivergent obsessive struggles to access long-term memory, I have unexpectedly traveled back to events that traumatized me. And I can process without any psychedelic use or anything. I can process what was going on, what I felt, and the most startling thing is I can process how it affected my entire life. How I have carried fears, traumas in an invisible bag behind me throughout my life. And it has factored into so many things I have done and felt. I was always a very nice guy and an empath. I was a different type of empath then. Because what was happening, no matter how I tried to advocate for others, throughout my career as a nurse and as a volunteer with NAMI, I was missing one aspect of advocacy. That by living, dying, and living again, I have achieved that missing aspect. So I am including myself in my relentless advocacy for those who are disabled, have brain injuries, have the other type of brain disorder I geared my podcast to, serious mental illness, like me. Being radically authentic does not mean I am impulsive or will blurt out anything. I respect others' privacy, and I will never discuss any issues about another person unless they are in front of me and consent to that. Before and after surviving a traumatic brain injury, that rule is firm. For myself, I really have no secrets. And I am aware most people do things because of a need for acceptance or validation or attention. It's human nature. Interestingly, that aspect of my limbic system, whatever happened in brain damage, and the following PTSD nightmare, it seems I have absolutely no need for any of those things anymore. I have learned by necessity to be my own encouragement. I have been my own crisis counselor, my own ER nurse. I do whatever it takes to survive. It wasn't always that way. For the first year, I was so confused because of brain injury and trauma that occurred after my brain injury. So my anger and rage, I directed it inwards, which I had always done as a neurodivergent psych nurse, except the way that manifested. And I don't know if I'm using that word right or wrong. I've been using Google Gemini AI to help me organize my thoughts and write, because I know AI has access to all psychology and sociology texts and literature, so it corrects some terms. I want to be articulate when I can, because some of the things I am trying to say are for clinicians, fellow clinicians, people living with brain injuries or any serious neurodegenerative disorder. I'm trying to frame things in a couple of different lenses. One as a clinician, two as a patient struggling and living with a continuous nightmare. I need to be fully unmasked, unrehearsed now. Here I am. My remaining mask, and I've taken a few off over the last 5 or 6 years, is so difficult to remove because it's the mask I wear for my family not to feel sad for me. Not to feel like I'm just doom and gloom and just need some hope to think positive. Or I'm all out of recovery tricks, things I can think of, knowing recovery models and believing in that for others, but I don't know how to do it for myself. My heart is weak, my kidneys are full of kidney stones, my left shoulder is completely subluxed and out of the socket. As I get close to organ failure, no one told me that. I learned how to read reports and compile information. So as I've said, this is all my investigation, my root cause analysis, or my special review. Only unlike the others I have obsessed over and to learn, this one makes no sense to me, because I'm not doing an RCA for a patient that died in the hospital. I'm doing it for a man that unexpectedly is still here, and that is me. I go to parks and I cry. Making myself vulnerable in a public place, I have no problem with that. And I am not embarrassed, ashamed, seeking acceptance. My identity does not require anyone to confirm it or apply it or give it to me, my identity, as so many others. In bad relationships, with family, others, and themselves. There is a reason why I am so very focused on suicide prevention, harm reduction, and storytelling. Because that is all part of my suicide prevention protocol I've been using for myself. And I've decided, since I'm learning to be okay with myself, let me expand this to help others who need it. Others who need to learn how to tell their own stories in their own words, which requires addressing the internal monologue that I know so intimately can put someone in the ground. It came very close to that for me. Yet I'm here, and I will remain here for as long as I can. I have tried for 6 months to get into NYU Rusk. I have learned to live with vertigo and spins and vomiting and pain and loss. I tolerate anything I must because I have no choice. I have dreamed of this thing called vestibular therapy, and I want it to be there for others. I want science and education to be there for people that need it. There is a siege of science and education going on in this country right now. And whether or not any of the currently available science or care is available for me, ever, I want it to be there for those who need it. And for those whose greed determines the business of healthcare, because everything is on a business model. Food, pharma, everything. As more wealthy men struggle to make more money, services and benefits are cut off to those who have so little to begin with. To my fellow disabled veterans of the military, I want you to have appropriate, compassionate care. I am aware of the various cuts to DoD, VA. I am a man that believes, put your mouth where your money is, put your money where your mouth is, something like that. I am a man of actions, not words. So instead of making an enormous budget for the military to attack countries that will destroy us and may have already begun, let's take care of people in this country and veterans and healthcare. We lost our way politically. Both parties are destroyed. The rules have been broken and smashed. But decency and integrity, for me, are part of my honor and respect. There seems to be less and less in our world these days, especially in Washington, D.C. I am not a cosplayer from a television station. I'm a man suffering and struggling to live another day. And I've been in survival mode for 6 months. It is tiring. But I push myself not to just take a bunch of painkillers and lounge out in bed and sink into the woodwork and disappear. It's part of why I'm recording these videos. And this motivates myself. I do not care if anyone ever watches any of these things. I am doing this for myself because I am an influencer of one. That is myself. In the chance I will see this video, because I know I will forget having made it within an hour from now. I already know this. In the chance I see it and I am watching, now I am speaking to myself. Don't give up.